Oh, g'day, mate. 40 here. So, there's a holocaust going on in America right now, and people aren't even talking about it. Like, why is there this like total silence, this wall of silence in the mainstream media, when millions of Trump supporters are being put in re-education camps, and we know what those re-education camps really are. They're death camps, right? And millions of Trump supporters are being purged from their jobs. Remember all this retribution we were warned about that would happen after Trump, if he lost the 2020 election, that there would just be this massive purge carried out against Trump supporters? Well, it's now, October 2nd, 2021. I'm not aware of any massive purge going on against Trump supporters. I don't know anyone who's in my life who's been purged or suffered. So that big purge that was going to go on against Trump supporters, I don't think it's happened. And it's just another stupid idea coming out of the populist right. So I tend to go in cycles. So for the last few years, I've just been increasingly disgusted by many of the points made or the arguments made by the populist right from like it used to be anti-vaccine came from the loopy left, and now it's a dominant characteristic among Trump supporters. And then we had all these warnings how Trump supporters were going to be purged, and there'd be massive retribution against Trump supporters, and they'd be forced into re-education camps. And I don't think that's happened. Right? All those horrible things that were going to happen to Trump supporters if he lost the 2020 election, I don't think that's happened. I don't think there's been any like mass genocide, mass purge. I haven't heard widespread people, Trump supporters getting fired by the tens of thousands. In fact, I can't think of how Trump supporters are materially disadvantaged now as compared to when Donald Trump was president. So I would prefer Donald Trump was president rather than Joe Biden, but it seems to me Joe Biden has done a decent job. I'd give him a C. And I can't think of any like systematic, specific way that Trump supporters are being disadvantaged because Joe Biden's in power. I can't think of how white Americans are being particularly oppressed in new and substantial ways since Joe Biden has assumed office. So this idea of some mass purge of Trump supporters, of massive re-education and retaliation going on against Trump supporters, I'm not aware of that happening. I think that's just BS. Then another really stupid talking point that you hear from right-wing pundits like Tucker Carlson is that we don't really know who's running the Joe Biden administration. Well, yeah, we do know. Joe Biden has been a United States Senator and a vice president. He's been a leading figure in national political life since about 1970. So he has a 50-year-old track record for how he conducts himself, right? And his administration bears all the hallmarks of Joe Biden. Biden's a centrist Democrat. He's governing as a centrist Democrat. This administration reflects Joe Biden's personality. It's obviously a Joe Biden administration. Joe Biden is obviously calling the shots, just like Donald Trump ran an administration that was representative of who Donald Trump is as a human being. Trump is terrible at managing things. He is good, however, at staging pageantry. He is good at staging compelling TV. He is good at providing a compelling reality show. And he is going to do some of the things that he promised to do. And he will often say things that are politically incorrect, but not usually the type of thing said by politicians, but fodder for discussion and thought-provoking and sometimes even important. So just as the Donald Trump administration bore all the hallmarks of Donald Trump for good and for bad, the Joe Biden administration bears all the hallmarks of Joe Biden. He's obviously the man in charge. So this notion, I wish we knew who was in charge of the Biden administration. Joe Biden is just doing what his handlers tell him to do. Biden ran a political campaign to get the Democratic nomination, then win the presidency, and then conduct himself for 9 months in office in presidency, just as you would expect Joe Biden to conduct himself, right? This Joe Biden administration bears all the hallmarks of Joe Biden's very well-known personality and political profile. So yeah, obviously Joe Biden is running the Joe Biden administration. And this notion that he's just senile and that there are hidden forces pulling the strings is obviously not true. Because Joe Biden has a track record, and we can compare this current administration to Joe Biden's track record, and we find they match up psychologically, politically, socially. How he conducts himself matches up. Just as with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was not an unknown figure when he became president of the United States, and his administration and sometimes the car crash qualities, the childishness, sometimes the bravery, were all characteristics of Donald Trump prior to taking office. Yeah. Why won't Eric Weinstein publish a paper if his theory is so brilliant? He has published that paper, bro. He's published that paper, and he presents it like, I'm just an entertainer, dude. So you've got to check out Decoding the Gurus. This is such a good podcast, and the stuff they do on Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein and Douglas Murray and Scott Adams is so good. They just did one on Jordan Hall. I mean, so much good stuff. And yeah, these are two center-left academics, but they're not arguing the ideological points of the secular gurus who they're critiquing. What they're critiquing is their thought process and how self-contradictory many of their arguments are. So I'm a big fan of this podcast now. I hear it's in the top 100 on iTunes, Decoding the Gurus. Then one other thought, what the hell's going on with Kamala Harris? Why did she make an unannounced trip to Palm Springs? Like, who's dying? Like, is she and her husband? What's going on there? Like, why was Kamala Harris spending last night in Palm Springs at an unspecified location? And what the hell's going on? Like, why did Kamala Harris? Right, why did she fly to Palm Springs? Like, what's really going on? Why is it fairly hush hush? You know, what was she in Palm Springs for? Oh, never let a crisis go to waste. Remember, that's this big leftist globalist conspiracy that they're going to take advantage of the corona crisis and to install one world government. Right? I'm just thinking off the top of my head, perhaps the best example of people in power not letting a crisis go to waste is the 2003 Iraq fiasco. That right after 9/11, Paul Wolfowitz, George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld was like, oh, how can we now invade Iraq? Right? They took a crisis, 9/11. Bush was enjoying 90% support, and it's like, let's not let this crisis go to waste. Let's go invade Iraq, which had absolutely nothing to do with the 9/11 attacks. It was the biggest fiasco in American foreign policy history. And I've been reading a terrific book on that, and it's by a journalist. Normally I prefer books by academics rather than journalists, but this book is by Robert Draper, and it's called To Start a War, How the Bush Administration Took America into Iraq, and it's such a fun read. It's such a fun read. It's like lots of compelling details. I've read, 30 books on 9/11 and the Iraq invasion, but this is primo stuff. It just came out in 2020. It's been named one of the best books of 2020, called To Start a War, How the Bush Administration Took America into Iraq. Bye-bye.